first aspect, which we did not cover last week, reading aloud, which is looking at a passage and reading it effectively. Now, as you all know, reading aloud takes up a smaller portion of your marks than stimulus-based conversation. So I have chosen to tackle the more difficult section earlier. Today, we are going to do the more easy one, okay? So buckle on your seatbelts. We are going to go at a pretty fast pace, okay? So if I look at, okay, hold on, sorry. Okay. Wait, apologies. Okay, if I look at the rubrics for assessing reading aloud, you will see that the examiners are looking for good pronunciation and clear articulation, appropriate rhythm and stress that achieves a well-paced and fluent reading of the passage. I will explain these terms to you later, okay? And of course, you must also vary your pitch and your tone in order to convey the information, ideas, and feelings in a passage. So you cannot read like a robot. You cannot read without expression, okay? So it's important to keep these things in mind. So pronunciation, articulation, rhythm and stress, fluency, variation of pitch and tone, and feelings conveyed through your reading, right? So I have condensed all of that down from the rubrics into these 6 things that we need to pay attention to: pronunciation, articulation, rhythm, stress, pitch, and tone, right? As we saw in the previous slide. So can you all remember that in primary 3, I taught you all the 3 Ps? Okay, can you all remember the 3 Ps? Pronunciation, person, and punctuation, right? And I talked about how whenever you prepare yourself for a reading passage, in the 5 minutes given to you before you enter into the examination room, you should always spend 2 minutes on the passage. And what do you do in the 2 minutes? You look out for PPP, pronunciation, punctuation, and person, right? And what do I mean by pronunciation? If I break it down into the 6 areas that I just mentioned before, it has to do with how you pronounce the words. That means how you read out the words carefully, the word endings especially, and how you articulate it, meaning how you speak those words without blocking your mouth and making those words sound as clear and as precise as you can read it out. So pronunciation and articulation have to do with how clearly you form the words with your mouth. Okay, so it is important that when you speak, you must speak clearly. Do not use the paper to block your mouth. Do you understand, everybody? Right? Don't use the piece of paper given to you to block your mouth, because that will affect your pronunciation and articulation. Look in the direction of the examiner and try to be as loud as you can. Because if the examiner can't hear you, he can't mark you, right? He can't give you the marks, okay? Next is punctuation. Punctuation has to do with full stops, exclamation marks, commas, and question marks, and we'll deal more with that later. That has to do with how you read the text in terms of your speed, right? Because punctuation marks are like stop signs, right? They slow you down. As well as your stress, meaning how you emphasize certain words. For example, next to an exclamation mark, the word must be emphasized. Next to a full stop, the word must be emphasized. Okay, so punctuation helps you to identify which words to put the stress or the particular attention on, right? And finally, person has to do with your pitch and your tone, meaning how you vary the reading between the narrator and the character. So you are the narrator, you are also the character, but you cannot sound the same when you're reading them both, right? Otherwise, there's no distinction between the two in your text. So please always remember to make sure there's a change in the way you read, and I'll demonstrate that to you later, okay? How do you make the narrator sound like the narrator? How do you make the character sound like the character? That's varying your pitch and your tone as you are reading, okay? So let's take a look at this, okay? This sample script. Now, you'll notice that the word endings have been highlighted in yellow. Have you all noticed that? It's all in yellow, right? Why is it in yellow? Because pronunciation is what I'm looking out for. Can you see? So Ben and Tom had just managed to squeeze into the train before the doors closed behind them. Can you hear how I am pronouncing the word endings? I'm not like swallowing the S and the D and the T, right? I am reading them out very clearly. So Ben and Tom had just managed to squeeze into the train before the doors closed behind them. Can you hear the D and the T? Very clear, right? Now, I cannot read like that if I'm going too fast. Now I read for you again. If I'm reading very fast, you will hear that all my word endings will disappear, right? Ben and Tom had just managed to squeeze into the train before the doors closed behind them. Can you hear the difference? Right? Immediately, all the D, the T, the S's, the word endings are gone. Why? Because I'm too fast. So the first thing to remember in order to pronounce words effectively is you cannot go too fast. Do you understand, everybody? Right? If you read too quickly, you will suffer a loss of pronunciation. So read at a reasonable pace. What is a reasonable pace? This is a reasonable pace. Ben and Tom had just managed to squeeze into the train before the doors closed behind them. To their surprise, although there were no vacant seats, there was still space further in, and the train was not as crowded as they had thought. All right, can you see? It's a very systematic, a very steady pace. I'm not too fast. I'm not too slow. I can pronounce every word ending and every word clearly. I articulate myself very clearly without rushing. So remember, do not rush when you read a text. If everybody is clear, give me a thumbs up. Good. All right. So another very common mistake that students make is with the word the, T-H-E. Now, I'm sure you all know that when the word T-H-E appears next to a vowel sound, it sounds different. Do you all know that? So for example, if I say the plastic bag, the, T-H-E, the plastic bag, P is not a vowel, right? So I pronounce T-H-E as the plastic bag. But the moment the next word is a vowel sound, then I have to change T-H-E to the. So not the apple, but the apple. Not the egg, but the egg. Not the ice cream, but the ice cream. Not the orange, but the orange. And not the ugly fruit, but the ugly fruit. Can you see A-E-I-O-U in the vowel sounds, everybody? Yeah, so whenever you see the vowel sound after T-H-E, the T-H-E must sound like the. But when the word is not a vowel sound, it sounds like the. So the plastic bag, the apple. Everybody just take a minute to silently practice it. The plastic bag, the apple. Okay, just practice it by yourselves. The plastic bag, the apple. I want to see your mouths moving, please. I want you all to practice, okay? The apple, the egg, the ice cream, the orange, the ugly fruit. Okay, but the plastic bag, the man, the woman, the sea, okay? The ocean. Why the ocean? Because ocean begins with the letter O, right? So the sea, the ocean. The man, the egg, all right? So always remember to be very conscious of T-H-E next to vowel sounds. The entrance. So people should not just stand near the doors. They are blocking the entrance and others cannot board. Tom boldly commented. Can you all hear the and the? Yeah, all right. So it's pretty obvious, right? Okay. So that's the THE rule. Okay. And like I mentioned, don't ignore the end sounds like T, S, and D because those are commonly spotted by the teacher. So be very deliberate in your reading of word endings, especially. Okay, everybody? Don't speed through your reading. Read at a steady pace so that you can form every letter of the word, right? But don't go too slow either. Then you'll be reading word by word, which is not correct either. You need to be fluent and link the words together. Okay, so just refer back to my demonstration in my recording later if you need to hear what is the correct steady pace you need to follow. Okay, so that's it, right? So remember the train, right? And then you can see all the other examples here. All right, let me move on. So next is punctuation. So we talked about pronunciation. Now we move to punctuation. Remember the rule that I taught you about punctuation, right? Anything with a tail is worth 1. Anything without a tail, that's just a dot by itself, is worth 2 beats. Remember that, everybody? So if you do a full stop, it's going to be. If you do a comma, it's going to be. So if I clap out the sentence, it will sound like, not so loud, Tom. We wouldn't want to get ourselves into trouble. So let's just move in. Ben, who was the timid one, whispered. Okay, so you can hear that there is a very clear progression here. Okay, yes, Keen, go ahead. What's your question?
What about open and close inverted commas?
Open and close inverted commas are floating above the line, right? Can you see they are floating above? You can ignore anything that floats above the line. All right? If it counts as a beat, it must be on the ground. So an exclamation mark, the dot is on the ground, right? A question mark, the dot is on the ground, right? A comma, the tail is on the ground, right? And a colon, the dot is on the ground, right? So you will pay attention to anything that touches the ground. That means the line. If it's floating above the words or above the letters, you can safely ignore it in terms of the speed of your reading. Is that clear, everybody? So thank you, Keen, for asking that question. You can ignore open and close inverted commas. You can ignore apostrophes, right? You can also ignore dashes, right? Because they are above the line. They are floating. But the moment something hits the ground, meaning the bottom, the floor or the line, then you have to give it its due amount of time. A dot, 2 dots, a dot, 2 beats, and a tail, 1 beat. Okay? Also note that exclamation marks usually indicate that something is exciting or scary. So you need to make it sound like that. And a question mark always denotes a question. So you must always raise your tone at the end of a question, right? Are you going? Is he here? Can you hear the upward tone? So a question mark, you see the curve, right? Is to tell you that your tone needs to curve. Are you going? Is he coming? Are they here? Okay, so the upward tone is basically controlled by the question mark, right? The exclamation mark is like, no, right? There's a certain sense of excitement and drama. Help, right? There's always something exciting or scary going on next to an exclamation mark. So you must sound excited or scary, depending on what the sentence is about. Okay, it's not always scary, it's not always exciting. So you must be very careful in terms of reading the sentence, preparing yourself in the 2 minutes to know how to read that sentence according to the punctuation mark. So never ignore exclamation marks and commas. They are very important as well, right? So they don't just control the speed, they also control the way which you read that sentence. Okay, so be very careful. A lot of times, right, question marks and exclamations will only occur in dialogue. You know what I mean, right? In the speech bubble. Okay, so if it's someone saying something, then you will see exclamation and question mark. Usually that's the case. All right, so be prepared to sound different when you read exclamations and question marks. All this combines to control the pace and the rhythm of your reading. Okay, the question marks, the full stops are like stop signs and, go signs. So it's like a traffic light. So you can imagine that the full stop, question mark, and exclamation mark are the red, and the commas are the yellow, right? And everything else is green. You can just go straight ahead. All right, so imagine the traffic light. Red, 2 beats, yellow, 1 beat, and green, no beats at all. Continue reading as per normal. Anything floating above the line. Okay? And try not to read word for word. Don't go not so loud. Tom, the moment you do that, you will fail your reading aloud. Is that clear? The moment you read word by word, you will fail. So never do that. Is that clear? Always link. Not so loud, Tom. But please, on the exam day, don't clap. You'll get into trouble if you clap. Okay? Right. So next, stress, right? I talked about how certain words need to be stressed, right? Now, when I say stressed, I don't mean that you feel stressed. I mean that you give that word a bit more attention when you read it. Okay? So in the first section here, not so loud, Tom, right? Which word do you think I will need to stress? Which word do I need to pay more attention to? Jing Kai?
Loud.
Yes, very good. Because I am talking about the volume, right? Not so loud, Tom. Can you hear? I'm stressing the word loud. Not so loud, Tom. So when I give that word a bit more weight, I'm stressing that word. And if I can stress the correct words, then my reading will sound very different. Different parts of the sentence will sound different, which is the top band. When I vary the pitch and the tone of the reading, doesn't sound the same throughout. You all know, right? In those medical drama, you always see the heartbeat monitor, right? If the heartbeat go, that means the subject is dead, right? Yeah, so you don't want to read like that. You don't want to read like, you want to go up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, right? So not so loud, Tom, right? We wouldn't want to get ourselves in trouble. So let's just move in. Can you hear trouble, move, right? These are the stressed words. And when you vary your pitch and tone by stressing certain words, you provide a variation in your sentence. And it sounds a lot better, more interesting, more engaging, right? Otherwise, not so loud, Tom, we wouldn't want to get ourselves into trouble. So let's just move in like a robot. Very boring, right? Nobody likes to listen to that. Okay? So timid, whispered, these are some words that you can focus on. Just look at the keywords, right? The words that you think are more important. There's no right answer, wrong answer. But as long as you stress certain important words, you are already there. Okay? So don't worry, oh no, I don't know which word to stress. Just stress one or two words that you feel are more important in the sentence and you'll be in a good place. Because that will mean that that word stands out among the others. Okay? So far, so good, everybody? All good so far? Right? Mr. Bang is very conscious of not going over the time today. So I'm going to go a little bit faster. Okay? Everybody good so far? Okay, so final P. So we've talked about punctuation. We've talked about punctuation, person, and suddenly the last P just slipped to me. Punctuation, pronunciation, and person, right? So now we're going to talk about person, okay? So punctuation and pronunciation are pretty straightforward. Person is a little bit more challenging because in person, you have to become another character. Okay, it's a little bit more challenging. And for those of us who are not so dramatic, this may be a bit difficult to do. Okay, it's easy to read as a narrator, right? You're just reading in a normal tone. But the moment you become a character, you need to sound different from the narrator. Usually, you need to sound more excited. Okay, so in this case, right, the narrator is the person telling you the story. And then Tom and Ben are two different characters in that story. So I'm going to let you hear whether you can listen and discern what's the difference in the way that I read, okay? So I'm going to read this extract now. Y'all listen out, okay? The problem was that most of the commuters who were standing had not made an effort to move in. People should not just stand near the doors. They are blocking the entrance and others cannot board, Tom boldly commented. Not so loud, Tom. We wouldn't want to get ourselves into trouble, so let's just move in. Ben, who was the timid one, whispered. Okay, did y'all hear the difference? Was every character different? Right? Yeah, you can hear it, right? So the narrator is just very normal, right? If I use one word to describe the narrator will be normal. Now, what word would you use to describe Tom? If I only ask you to describe Tom in one word, the way that he read it just now, people should not stand near the doors. They're blocking the entrance and others cannot board. Now, what does Tom sound like in one word? Ethan?
Bold.
Bold, right? But that doesn't explain it. We still don't know what bold means. Can someone else give me a clearer answer? Keen?
Rowdy.
Rowdy. Again, can you simplify it for those of us who don't know what the word bold or rowdy means? Anyone? Javia?
Angry.
Angry, right? He's angry. He's loud, right? He's very outspoken, right? He's very loud. Okay. And finally, what about Ben? Ben is not angry or loud, is he? What is he? He's different, right? So what's one word? Jing Kai?
Shy.
Sorry?
Shy.
Shy, timid, right? Not willing to raise his voice very loud. Okay? He's whispering, isn't he? Right? So he sounds different. Can you see the words whispered, the words boldly, and the words timid? Control the way that I read the dialogue. Right? So you all must pay attention to these words, because these words will guide you in the way that you read the passage, such that it will sound like the character. And it will be different from the narrator, because the narrator has no emotions. The narrator is not involved in the scene, but the characters are. And so you must let the characters express their emotions, right? So narrator is like a 0. Narrator is like normal, 0. Okay? Then Tom is like +2, because Tom is very loud. Right? So you increase the volume +2, right? And then Ben is like -2 because he's very soft, like very timid, right? He's not willing to speak up. So imagine the volume dial I increase, I decrease to change the characters, right? So I switch up, it becomes Tom. I switch down, it becomes Ben. I switch to the middle, it becomes the narrator. Do you all understand, everybody? If you do, give me a thumbs up, please. Awesome. So remember, punctuation, pronunciation, and person. The most difficult one is person. But if you get person correct, you will be able to get full marks, right? Because a lot of times, right, why teachers don't give you full marks is because you sound the same all the way through. You sound like yourself. But the moment you change up, change down, the teacher can hear that there are different characters in the story, right? Wow, you will immediately be in the top band. Okay? So always try to vary the way that you read between the dialogue and the narrator, especially. Okay? Pay attention to who are the characters and try to make them sound different. Okay? By increasing or decreasing the volume, the intensity, and be guided by the words like whispered, timid, boldly, angrily, these kind of adverbs that tell you how that character sounds in that moment. Okay? Right. So pronunciation, punctuation, and person. Pronunciation has to do with how you sound out the words clearly. Punctuation has to do with how fast or slow you read the text, as well as how much emphasis you place on the words. And person has to do with the variation of pitch and tone because you are different people in the story. Narrator, character 1, character 2, right? So combining all three will give you a very nice, fluent, exciting sounding text. And that's what you want to do when you go for the exams. In the 2 minutes, spot where your pronunciation, punctuation, and person points are and practice them in the 2 minutes. Then the remaining 3 minutes, work on your picture. Is everybody clear so far? Right? I'm giving you a structure, right? So if you follow this structure, you will never, ever be unprepared when you go into the exams. You'll be very confident because you know what to look out for. And more importantly, you know what the examiner is looking out for. And you can give it to the examiner. And the moment that happens, you will be able to score very well for your orals. Is everybody clear? So always look out for the 3 Ps: punctuation, pronunciation, and person, right? So, very good. I'm well within the time limit for today. So I don't want you all to just listen, right? I want you all to practice. So what's going to happen is I'm going to set you some very easy homework to do. Okay? There's 2 things that we have covered so far, right? One is the 3s for stimulus-based conversation. 2 is the 3 Ps for reading aloud. So today, your simple homework is to record a passage that I will send to your parents. You use the WhatsApp audio recording function to record yourself reading that passage, and then you will send it to me, right? You can get your parents to send it to me through WhatsApp so that I can give you a score for your reading aloud. That's it. You just need to read it, record it, and send it to me. Is that okay? Can y'all do it by today? Then the stimulus-based conversation 3s assignment, I will give you the next 3 days to do. So you have until Friday to hand up the SLS assignment that I'm going to assign to you for your stimulus-based conversation. It's on the theme of kindness, a kind act. Okay, that one is already in SLS for all of you to complete. You need to go through it. It's quite a lengthy assignment, so don't rush through it. Do it properly, answer it properly, record your recordings properly. That one you have until Friday. But today, your homework will be to read out a passage that I'm going to send to you, to your parents by this evening. Try to send it to me by tomorrow evening latest. Can you all do that, everybody? Okay, any problems accessing your parents' mobile phones? No, right? Once they get home later, they should be able to show you the passage and then you can just read it, record it using the WhatsApp audio recording function and then send it to me through WhatsApp. Okay, everybody, that's all for today, right? I promised you half an hour. I'm actually even a little earlier than that, right? So any questions at this point in time about the 3 Ps? Very easy, right? We've been covering this all this time, right? So you just need to apply this and you will be in a very strong position for reading aloud. Okay? If no questions, then I will end the session here. So remember your homework, SLS, is due on Friday. The audio recording is due tomorrow evening. Okay? That's all. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for your time.
Bye. Bye-bye. Bye.
Also the
Yes, Yafia, did you raise your hand?
What about
the listening comprehension.
Don't worry about that, okay? Yeah, just focus on the homework that I've assigned to you first. All right.